Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm excited to be here today with my colleague and friend, David Wood. David, welcome.
Thank you, Shana. I've done a lot of interviews in the past couple of years, maybe 160 of them, but it's rare I get to hang out with a really good friend.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see you.
This is exciting. And today we're going to talk about one of your favorite topics. And I'm not going to say it's one of my least favorite topics, but I will say we're going to talk about fear and how to not let fear stop you, and how to really build courage and move through these scary places. And so let's say it's not my least favorite topic, but I love that you have expertise in this, because when I was younger, I used to think of myself as I was bold and I was brave and I was courageous. I traveled the world by myself as a young woman when there was hardly any internet. My mom didn't even know if I was alive. But as I've gotten older, and I think many listeners can relate to this as well, now that I have a kid, now that I have responsibilities, I find that I have more fear. I get stuck in more fear. So thank you for bringing your expertise on this topic to us.
My pleasure. Not much that's more satisfying to me than sitting with someone, helping them realize what they're afraid of, and then helping them choose. Maybe they decide not to go into it, and that's fine. Or maybe they do want to go into it and they screw up their courage and then they get an amazing result. That's fun for me. And the best result, look, I care about business results. I care about lots of results, but one of the best results you can have is feeling good about yourself.
Yeah.
That you faced a fear and went into it.
Yeah. So what would you say, what's your relationship with fear that had you become so passionate about this?
Well, it was kind of a slow boil. I realized as I've been doing so many interviews and working out what I care about, what my values are, I realized that I tend to lean into scary things a bit more than the average bear. So due to some stuff that happened when I was a kid, I've got some abandonment issues. And so when I get into a relationship, it's scary for me. Maybe the other person's going to leave or they're going to die, because my sister died when I was younger. But I would go into that, and even to the point of dating in open relationships and exploring polyamory, because I knew I was afraid. And I thought, can I find a way to ground and open my heart and not be possessive? So that's one example. And I also realized I'm afraid of heights, which is kind of weird since I started paragliding 30 years ago, or hang gliding. And then even despite 2 or 3 accidents, I went into paragliding, and I will, if you watch me run off a mountain in Nepal, you might be like, wow, that guy's got no fear. That guy's
fearless.
Are you
but
kidding me?
That's not how it is for you. You're
I am
scared.
shitting myself as I'm running off, particularly after watching the last 2 people faceplant into the trees.
Oh my God.
I'm like, and there's barbed wire next to me because the farmers were having a fight with the paragliding pilots. So they put barbed wire all over the place. And it's like, are you kidding me? I don't have enough to worry about.
Right.
But I've cultivated a habit of leaning into it and
Yes,
facing the fear because I know I feel better about myself
when you do.
afterwards once I've conquered that. Now, there
Okay,
are
so wait,
limits.
this is important to know that it's not like you're talking about, oh, you're going to get over your fear. This is actually how to work with your fear, befriend your fear, move through fear.
Oh, I'm really glad you brought that up. Yeah, let's use speaking as
Yes.
an example, right? One of people's huge
One of the
fears,
biggest
right?
fears.
Fear of
Yes.
public speaking. And it's so true. I get nervous still
Oh God, me
if
too.
I'm in a group of people and we're going around and people are going to talk about their life or
Yeah.
like what brought them here.
You start sweating.
I'm planning. I don't sweat, but I plan what I'm going to talk about, and
Uh-huh.
I care about what happens. So if you put me on stage,
Yeah.
I've done so many speeches now, and the most people I've spoken to is about 1,200. And I had a minder even to make sure I didn't go anywhere. And we had like 4 TV screens behind me. It was a huge event.
Yeah.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
And people came up to me at the end of the speech and said, "You were very Zen-like.
Uh-huh.
You were very Buddha-like." Now, it is true, after the first, say, 2 minutes up there, I really did drop in.
Yes.
So it did
The
shift.
fear wasn't as strong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I get terrified. I go into improv,
Uh-huh.
right? Doing improv on stage is one of the scariest things I think a person can do. You
Yeah.
don't even have a script. You're going to step out in front of people with nothing
With nothing.
and hope something comes. That and stand-up comedy are 2 of the scariest things I've ever done.
Yeah.
But it hasn't gone away. I get better at it,
Yes.
and my fear does lessen a bit.
Yeah.
But there was a time when I went on national television and I literally peed my pants a little bit.
Oh my God.
Literally. So here I am. This is to promote my business. So my business at the time was an entertainer,
Yeah.
and I got an audition and I was successful. And they said, "All right, we want you to come and be on the Gong Show equivalent that we've got in Australia." And here I am in a kilt, wearing these funny glasses, and I'm about to do the Proclaimers version of 500 miles.
Yeah.
I would walk 500, right?
500
And
miles.
play guitar and sing.
Yeah.
And I'm not a good singer. And it's national television. And I lost bladder control in the
God.
green room. Just 3 drops came out. But let me
It
ask you,
wasn't like a
Shayna.
big puddle on the floor, thank God.
No,
And
it wasn't.
this is not
But
on
but
air.
let me
But-
ask you: when you're about to go on national TV in a kilt,
Yeah,
does
that's
the fact that
not-
you're losing bladder control make you feel more comfortable?
No, way
No.
less comfortable. My
So
God.
that's a time to go into your overnight bag, put on 2 extra pairs of underpants, just as a wing and a prayer, and
Seriously.
then walk out on stage and
Oh
do
my
it.
God.
But I
You still
still
get
get scared around people. I still get
God.
scared around so many things. I'm scared of cold showers.
Yeah. Okay. So there's so many questions that I'm having. You know, one thing I want to come back to at some point is you said when you were on stage after those first 2 minutes, you dropped in and there was a shift there. And so I want to talk about that. But there may be something else before we get to that because, you know, you're doing all these things even though you have fear. So you're not seeing fear as an indicator of, not a good idea. I'm going to choose something else. You're actually moving toward these. So for someone who doesn't yet have that relationship with their fear, how do you suggest that they start to have that relationship with fear?
Yeah, well, let's start with awareness. I think our mind is good at hiding our fears from us. It'll just like,
Not mine.
no, well, particularly if you might be going to confront it, it can come up subconsciously. Like maybe you're just not sleeping well,
Yes.
right? Or maybe you just don't want to have a date with that person. You're like, no, I'm not really drawn to you,
Right.
but there's something bubbling that's underneath it. Like, for example, someone reached out to me a couple of days ago and said, I really want a relationship with you. And my mind went, well, I don't feel any romance here and I don't feel any sexual chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
But I was nervous. I was nervous about spending time with this woman. She's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And I get a little bit nervous with that. And I thought, here's a choice point.
Uh-huh.
But at least I could spot that and I didn't just shut it down. I'm like, I am a bit nervous. So I named it.
Uh-huh.
And that's incredibly important if you want to start increasing your awareness. Start naming it. Hey, I notice I'm a little bit nervous about that. Oh, I notice
You named it to yourself or with her?
First to yourself.
For self, yeah.
first to yourself, I'm writing a book right now. You don't know about this. We're writing a book called Name That Mouse,
Huh.
because the elephant isn't the only animal in the room,
Oh, that is fantastic.
right?
Yes.
So if this woman has reached out and I'm feeling a bit nervous, firstly, can I spot it to myself?
Uh-huh.
And that's not easy. But if you do become aware of it, now you've got a wonderful opportunity. You could name that mouse
Yeah.
in the room. Like, hey, I notice I'm a little nervous about this. Can we talk about it, or can I share about it?
Yeah.
I think that's a huge win. Now, maybe I decide to
Well,
go.
yeah, I was going to say that's a huge win. And many men who I work with, it's like that's not what they would want to be doing, is actually admitting fear. And it is one of the things I work on with them. Like, okay, so when you have fear, here are the ways you can talk about it or admit it. But I'm curious if you have any suggestions specifically for men.
Wow. Well, I'm a fan of both camps. I can see them. I tend towards the oversharing, so I'm a bit biased towards that. And you and I have a friend in common who would coach me to not do that and maybe have more art or artistry around it. So with a woman, I'm not going to share every little fear and
Yeah.
thought and whatever, but when I'm no longer bleeding from it and maybe I've shared it with someone else, I might tell a date, yeah, I was
Yeah.
nervous. I was nervous about tonight. I was like looking at my clothes in the mirror and I'm wearing my best jacket. And I noticed I
Yes.
got some excitement and nervousness. There are ways to do it. It can
Definitely.
still be quite very masculine
Totally. I mean,
and
that's what I
just
work on with
own
them
it.
too, right? Like there's a difference between dumping your fear on someone and being in the state of fear and anxiety versus, oh, I've found my own ground and my own center and I can talk about the fear and I can admit it and I can create connection with it.
Yep. Now, I'm a fan of, even before you've got it wrapped up in a bow, just take a risk. I think it's quite masculine to say, hey, I've got some fear going on right now.
Yes.
But again, and I get this from Decker Kunov, there are ways to do it. Like you can be suffering from something or afraid of something and say, wow, I'm getting my ass kicked right now.
Right.
And Brene Brown has a great example of this. For CEO, you're not going to go to the board and say, oh my God, we're running off a cliff and I got no idea what to do.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But once you've gotten some coaching and you've maybe done some journaling, you can go to the board and say, you might be afraid. Hey, sometimes I feel it too.
Right.
We don't have a full plan yet, but we will work it out together.
Right. We will work. I love that. We will work it out together.
Yeah.
Amazing. So fear doesn't have to be something that you just hide and, have to yourself. There may be times where you work it out with a friend or a coach or something before you share it, but other times you can just share it.
Here's the question.
Yeah.
Is it a problem? Are you
making it a problem?
Are you looking at it as a problem?
Yes.
If you are, the other person's going to get that. They're probably going to feel like they've got to support you and help you. But if you can be like, you know what? I'm afraid.
God, that's brilliant.
These days right now, I've got some fear in my system. And I know that because I'm waking up with weird dreams where I'm trying to, probably from my, losing my sister when I was little, but I'm like trying to protect people and I can't.
Yeah.
And so I have that, right? It's in my system. I don't mind telling people about it. They can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
It's not really a problem. I'd prefer I didn't have it, but
God, that goes for so much. Like if we're, upset, angry, all of those things, if it's not a problem,
yes,
then we can talk about it and we can be honest about it.
And now you're modeling leadership for others.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll realize, oh, I could talk about my stuff that's going on because you're talking about it so matter-of-factly.
Right.
I had one guy say to me years ago, he said, oh my God, I just realized I'm needy. And he was so excited about it.
It's like the excitement or kind of a celebration as opposed to, oh my God, this is a horrible problem and I need to change it and I need to fix it.
He said, I'm needy and that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that changed my life.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could say that.
Yeah.
Because sure, I'm needy from time to time, but now I can say it. How I'm feeling needy. I noticed that.
Yeah.
Do you want to help me meet this need? Do you think you can?
Mm-hmm.
That was a game changer too.
So much. Okay, this is awesome. So let's go back to, you have a relationship with fear where you're just heading toward it, right? We could call that
a lot of the time.
Counterphobic, a lot of the time. So for men who sometimes, and there's two different pieces we're tracking here. One is when you're not really aware of what the fear is, but you're waking up with dreams or you're feeling some kind of underlying, buzziness. And the other is I've got a specific fear and I'm backing away from it. So, you talked about awareness. Let's look at once somebody is aware that the fear is there,
Yeah.
but they're hesitating or backing away. How do you help them move
What's an
through it?
example? Let's make it real. What's an example one of your listeners might be feeling some fear around and then notice they're backing away?
So, one of the common things that I work with men around is their desires, their intimacy and sexual desires in a relationship, and actually speaking those out loud or taking some action, moving forward with something and doing something as opposed to kind of hesitating or holding back.
Yeah, well, that's a good example. Sharing your desires, like, hey, I'd like you to dress up in a Catholic school dress and see what happens. Like, that can be edgy.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good to get clear. So you and I think we did an interview on tough conversations at some point, and part of that worksheet was you write down what you're afraid of.
Yeah.
Like, what could happen? How could this go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And too often it's buried in the subconscious. Let's just talk it out, write it out. What could happen? This is not your sunny story. This is not your enlightened spiritual self. This is like what you're actually afraid of. Yes. So it could be, I'm afraid she's going to laugh in my face. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's good to know. Oh, I'm afraid of that. Yeah. I'm afraid that she or he is going to say no, and I'll feel rejected, or that they might pull away. Yeah. That's valid. They might be like, you weirdo. That'd be a whole other podcast if we were going to go there. Yeah. So just get really clear. I'm nervous about this and this and this and this, and then just be honest about it. That's a big win, just to get that clear. And so some journaling could work, talk to your coach. And then once that's clear, I think there's things you can do. There are practice things, like you could practice the conversation with someone else. There's some, like you can put some training wheels on. I'm all for training wheels. And I want to talk about an example with the cold showers, about how I put training wheels on for that.
Okay.
But then it just comes to a decision point about, am I willing to be vulnerable with this person?
Yeah.
And you might decide, no, I don't know the person well enough. It's too risky. I'm not going to go there. That's absolutely valid. I'm giving you permission right now, if you needed permission, to not face any fear. You don't have to. You really are at choice. But if you decide, you know what, I want to roll the dice a little bit and see what happens, then you could set some context for it. And now, this is like years ago when a coach said to me, all right, I want you to call that bully from school 25 years ago and tell him you've been hating him for years and you're letting go of that now. I said, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
No way am I going to do that. And she asked this question, what are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid he's going to think I'm an idiot. Yeah. And she said something that stayed with me to this day. She said, lead with that.
I'm afraid, right? Setting that context. I'm afraid
you'll think I'm an idiot.
And
that gave me the freedom to call him.
Yes.
I was like, I could do that, because now I'm being honest. So you could say to your partner or your date, hey, I want to talk about something. I want to talk about desires.
And I'm afraid you might leave me because of it.
Yeah, and I'm getting to that. But first, I'm setting up the context with the win. Okay. I want to talk about desires. I want to talk about some desires you might have that maybe you haven't told me about. I want to share a couple. Feels kind of edgy for me to do this, and I want to do it. And I want to do it anyway. So now you're showing a little bit of vulnerability, but you're also owning it. And you're like, I think this would be really cool. What do you say? How about what if we write down on a piece of paper 3 things we'd like from the other person, and then see if we got the guts to share them with each other?
I also love adding to that context piece some of that deeper why, right? Like not just, I want to do these things, but I want us to have the kind of pleasure that, when we go back into our lives the next day, we are on fire with our work and we're less irritated by our children and all of those things.
Yes. And I can see another benefit. I want us to both be expressed. Yeah. So, if there's something we don't get sexually in our relationship, it's not because we haven't talked about it or asked for it.
I love that.
Let's have that kind of relationship. So you can go into it. So you can still be nervous.
And then you said you would also add some of the piece about the worries or the fears. Like, I'm worried that you might judge me, or I'm worried that you might, pull away or think this is too much, or things like that.
Yeah. Depending on the relationship. If it's someone new that you're dating, you might keep that for your coach and your journal and just share the headline. Like, this is edgy for me. That can be enough. You don't have to go into it. Now, if it's someone I know more, you and I are both in the authentic relating communities pretty deeply. So a
Yes.
lot of people that we know are going to be really up for that kind of conversation. They're going to dig that. They live for this.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, oh, you're sharing your voice. Thank you so much. All right. And here's what's going on for me.
Yep.
If you don't live in that world and that's really edgy, you can just do a headline. This is a bit edgy for me.
Yeah.
And
And
I want to do it.
exactly. And I
Let's
want to
do
do it
it. Yeah,
anyway,
that's the
which
leadership move.
I can feel some excitement in that. Like, oh, you just told me that it's edgy for you and you want to do it anyway. That has me feel more energized and lit up.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're noticing the fear, sometimes speaking the fear. What about when it's not conversational? It's just something to do. How do you work with that one?
Okay. Example?
Like the example is,
Cold shower.
okay, sure.
Yeah. One of the reasons I'm interested in cold showers is because I don't want it. My brain says, no,
Right.
don't do that. That's a horrible thing. And I'm interested in shifting my brain chemistry.
Right. That you don't actually have to believe what your brain tells you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, there must be a way to do it. So for years, I didn't do it because it just looked like a horrible thing. And just stepping into the shower was freaky to me. And I'm in Boulder, Colorado. So there's snow on the ground.
Right.
Right. But someone gave me a way to put training wheels on, 3 different ways. So one way, Russell Price is a great coach. And he said, step in, get that first shock. Where you get that intake of breath and you're done. That's all you're going for. You're going
and then
for
turn
that.
it off or make it
Then
warm
you can
or whatever.
turn it on to hot.
Just do that.
Yeah, you can step out. He said you just want that shock. What a reframe. So now, before I was thinking that shock was bad. Now I'm like, he's saying you want that shock. Right. And once you've had it, you're good. So that gave me a starting point. And then someone else said, put one arm in. That's not hard. Put one arm in cold water and just give yourself 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I put a leg in and then 10 seconds with another leg.
Oh God.
10 seconds.
I thought you were going to say put an arm in and then take it out. But now if you're putting
I took it out. I took it out.
And then the leg only.
And then the leg.
And
so I'm acclimatizing my body to this bit by bit. And that's not hard. And then I'll step in and let it hit my belly. And that alone is not too bad. And I'll do 10 seconds of that. And then stepping in and getting it on your chest, that's even easier than the rest. The chest is actually very robust.
Interesting.
And after you've done everything else, there's less input to the brain because now the legs aren't telling you anything and the arms aren't telling you anything.
Right.
So I would do this and just build up that way.
Yeah.
And actually be able to do a whole minute and a half in a cold shower. And then the other training wheels that someone gave me, they said, do a hot shower and then turn it to cold. And I'm like, no way.
That's what I do. I do hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold.
Yeah, I did not want to do that. But one day I tried it and I found that once the body's already hot, I will stand there, turn it to cold and wait. And I imagine an ice gown or an ice cloak like coating me and just soothing and cooling my body. And it's
interesting. So you're using your mind, also the imagination to shift.
Yeah, I'm asking for it.
Yeah.
Come and give me this delicious coldness. And the first 4 or 5 times I did that, it was a little bit, I had to breathe and I had to kind of wait it out.
Well, breathing is important.
But now I'm finding it was like, I did it yesterday and it was quite pleasurable.
Yeah.
And 30 seconds of a cold shower once your body's hot isn't the scary thing I thought it was.
Yes.
Isn't that good to know?
Yes. Okay. So take this now and apply it to, someone walking around in the world and they want to go hang gliding like you have.
Great.
Like you're saying, you can create all these small steps.
Great. Let's use hang gliding and let's use speaking on stage.
Okay. Actually, yes.
So suppose you're scared of heights. Well, maybe you do some stuff that's not too high for a while. And then going flying with an instructor is a whole different ballgame to flying solo.
Tandem.
Right? So you go tandem with someone who's been doing it for 20 years. You might go up the first few times and just go up to the mountain and just watch people.
Yeah.
And maybe you do it, maybe you don't. And then one day you might be like, you know what? This doesn't look too bad. You can also go to some lower hills and you go off and you fly for 30 seconds and then you just do a quick little landing. Some training wheels.
So you're stair stepping it and training wheels. You're taking your time. Yeah.
Yep. Now, speaking on stage, I love this one because I've had to go through the training wheels and I've helped a lot of people with that. You don't go and just get up in front of 500 people where you don't know your topic. You're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But you could start with writing a speech, right? That's where we start. And then I usually get clients to book a night with their friends. Now, with the pandemic, you could book a Zoom date
Uh-huh.
for 20 minutes with 4 or 5 of your friends that love you.
Yeah.
And you say, I'm going to practice. And you do it and you practice. And when I did it, I got them to fill in a testimonial form at the end. So now I had 3 testimonials from
That's great.
random people. And then I went and got my first gig. Now, yeah, it was scary as hell. Almost all of them are. Although, interestingly, I said I do everything with the fear anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Podcast interviews is something that has really shifted with time.
Uh-huh.
It's
You
gotten
used to be more scared.
so easy. I've done so much of it. I really enjoy it. And I'm rarely, if it's a big one like Business Networking
Or like
International
me.
and Shayna James, like that, I took some Valium before this just to get through it.
Yeah, you're right. This is good. So it's like, okay, the more you do things, the less the fear grips you. It might still be there. I still have that. I mean, I don't love speaking in public, but I used to have stomach aches for 2 weeks and I couldn't talk to people for like 3 days before. I just had to go inside because there was so much energy. And right over the 15, 20 years of doing it, okay, now there is more relaxation, but I still get scared. I also heard that John Lennon like continued to throw up before every show, that, every time he went on stage. So once I also got that it's not needing it to go away,
Right.
but using that energy, there's
Yeah.
that shift.
I just heard a podcast interview with a woman who does security penetration testing, which I really want to do actually, where you try and get into a building where you're not supposed to.
Wow.
They hire you to see if you can break through the security and
Okay,
get in.
that sounds terrifying and fun at the same time.
Yeah. And she said she's still but you'd think it gets easier, but she'll go and she's trying to get the way past security. She's telling lies. She's like using fake security cards. She's trying to get in past security, knowing she could be caught and the police called in at any point.
Wow.
And there are people who do this in banks.
Oh my God.
Seriously. I thought it was fascinating that the poor woman, she never got over it, but she loves what she does.
Yeah.
And so she does it and she just gets nervous every time. And then it feels really good at the end, right? When you get off stage or you finish that scary thing or you finish that paragliding flight and you're on a high, sometimes that's why I do it, because it feels so good to have achieved it.
It's almost like there's nothing like the day after a huge speaking engagement or the day after I've done something super scary. I find my nervous system is like so open and calm in a way that it doesn't usually get to.
Yeah. So we're throwing 2 lifelines to listeners now. One lifeline is you don't have to get over the fear and it's okay and totally normal to be afraid and do it.
Yeah.
And you might even choose to name it. And I want to add to that about even naming it on stage. But the other lifeline is as you do it, a lot of these things do get a lot easier. Yeah. Tough conversations. There are tough conversations that used to be really scary and freaky for me now. And now with having done it a lot, I can say to someone, and you get better at setting context. I can say to like my assistant sent me a message saying, do you think you could get around to paying me today? Swear to God, like that's the language. And so I sent a message and I just said, so I just want to check. I could see how that could be taken as really friendly and literal. Do you think you could get around to it? I'd appreciate it. And also it could be a bit snarky and maybe you've got some frustration that's coming through. And I'm okay with either. I just want to know what we're talking about here. That was pretty easy for me because I've done this so many times. Yeah. So take heart. It probably will get easier. And if it doesn't, and you care enough about it, it probably won't kill you.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Cause I was going to say like, what next? You said it probably won't kill you. Yeah. I mean, that's actually a really good context to remember.
Yeah. And we talked about naming that mouse. This is a bit more of an elephant. If you're going to get on stage and you're nervous, it's probably a bit of an elephant in the room. Like you know about it. They probably know about it. So I'd call that an elephant. I think it's a great thing. You maybe make a joke about it, but you're like, you might be like, from up here, you guys look pretty scary, or you could just say public speaking is an edge for me and I'm
And
here because I want you to have this information.
that's
And
that there's so much respect. I have respect when I hear that because I'm like, oh, this person isn't just doing this to get off or get noticed or whatever. It's like, oh, there's something that this person is committed to and
yep.
is even working through the fear.
So going back to our example of the guy sharing a desire or sharing nervousness,
Yeah.
this is another example where you don't want to bleed from it. You don't want to have it be a problem they have to fix for you.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I'm nervous. This is edgy for me. And I'm here because I really want you to get this information. In fact, would you all take a deep breath with me? That would really help me. What a wonderful thing. We're all now doing something together. They totally get it. And then you're like, all right,
All
let's do
right, here we
this.
go.
Yeah.
And how did you make that shift in the time that you were on stage and you said, 2 minutes in, I dropped in? How did you
Right.
get from that fear to
You
the
did
drop in?
remember.
I did.
Yeah, nicely done. So this was 1,200 people. It was T. Harv Ekker's event. I was terrified when I went up there. What really helped, I got to tell you, is Harv enthuses his audience so much, and he talks to them about the law of reciprocity. He says, you're going to get what you give.
Yeah.
So when I got up there, I stood with the audience and they stood up and they applauded for 66 seconds
Wow.
before I opened my mouth.
Awesome.
And I stood there and I was with them and I breathed. So that helped, I think. And I think that's why they kept going. They saw I was taking it in. I saw some people in the audience. I smiled, I waved. I had my friends there. It was a huge thing. So that was, oh my God, did that help? Secondly, I was honest.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do a song and dance, which is like, I'm going to try and present all this stuff and hope you like it enough and you're going to buy. Now I'm quite upfront. I say, look, here's what I've learned how to do. And if you like, I'd be happy to show you. Would that be useful to you?
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, my topic was, I told them that I was making $40,000 a month. And if I worked 3 days in that month, it would spike from 40,000 to 70,000 from working 3 days. And I said, I told them what I'm not. I said, you'll speak to a lot of millionaires right now. I'm not the guy to tell you how to make all the millions, but I could show you how to earn money while you're sleeping about something you care about and that would make a difference for the world. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Nice.
And they went nuts. They're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, well, I will tell you about that. So I was talking about something I actually care about and I knew a lot about. And here's another thing that really let me relax. I tell on myself. I told you I'm biased towards transparency and authenticity. Yep. I'm an oversharer. Yep. So if I made a mistake, I'd laugh about it and I'd tell them. At one point, I kept turning around to see what was on the screen behind me because that's where my notes were or on the slides.
Yeah.
And I was doing this for half an hour. And then I
Before
noticed
you realized the monitor down below.
The monitor's right in front of me. And what a lot of people I think would do, and I would have done this earlier in my life, is just glossed over it.
Right. Hide it.
It happens. It's reached my conscious attention. Let's gloss over it and keep doing my song and dance.
Yes.
I laughed and I just said to them, guys, consummate professional that I am, here I am looking around all the time and I've just noticed the monitor's right in front of me. So we all had a good laugh about it. And then more laughs every time I forgot and looked around behind me.
Right. Yeah. And I like that piece around first of all, you've included them in seeing something bigger than your fear. And you've also included them in your humanity and not feeling like that needs to be the thing, like you don't anymore, it sounds like, get stopped by the fear of, well, if I tell them this or show them my fear, then that's all they're going to see in me. You know that there's more to you than that. And so you don't have to get stuck in that fear trap of, but then that's all they're going to see.
That's true. Earlier in life, I did speaking and I got paid to fly interstate. It was at the age of 28 or 9. It was very exciting to get paid $1,000 and they flew me. And I was sharing the stage with some big politicians and whatever. So that was exciting, but I was a fake. I didn't know it, but I was pretty young and I was pretty new to the coaching thing. And I had a lot of fear and I didn't show it. Uh-huh. And so after doing that for a couple of years, I stopped for 6 years.
Mm-hmm. Stopped
and
speaking.
And also what made it hard was I felt like my livelihood depended on it. Uh-huh. So I needed them to like me and to buy from me. So for 6 years, I didn't speak on stage. And this speech I told you about was the first one after 6 years. Wow. And something that really helped is I didn't feel like I needed it anymore. I was already successful as a coach. This was a bonus. If people bought my stuff, that'd be great. If they didn't, I didn't really need it. And I thought, if I can sell 10 grand in product from the stage, I can hold my head up high.
Yeah. Well, I love what that speaks to also is like, when you're not in a selling conversation, but you're with someone, a partner, or you're asking for something, it's like you already knew your own value. And so if somebody knows their own value, that fear can dissipate some, or it can be, worth it to move through that fear.
It's so true. So I said 10,000, right? And in 15 minutes at the end of my speech, people paid $127,000.
Wow.
In 15 minutes, like
Amazing.
One person leapt on the table. And the next time we did that same speech, there were 20% less people in the audience, and we tripled sales, 330,000. And I think a lot of it was, I'm just like, look, I'm not going to push this on you. Yeah. This is some cool stuff. If this is helpful, here's how you can get it. Yeah. And I made it compelling.
Love it. All right. What do you want to leave men with? What feels most important to say?
You're allowed to be afraid. I'm Australian. We weren't really allowed to be afraid or to have emotions growing up in Australia, but I've spent 20 to 30 years of my life learning you can be plenty afraid. In fact, you should be at times. There are many reasons to actually be afraid. It's good information, and you don't have to face that fear. You may want to, because you'll feel good about it and you push back your boundaries and you grow as a person. Mm-hmm. Plus, it's really great for your business to go and ask that celebrity for an endorsement, or to write the foreword to your book, or to ask that person for the sale, or to ask that woman out, or to ask for the Catholic schoolgirl uniform
costume
in the bedroom.
Uniform.
Yeah. Like, you may want to face that fear. And so hopefully you've got some tools and tips now from today that you can go into it and either conquer the fear, that's great, or just be afraid and do it anyway.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And where can people find more of you?
Well, I have a gift basket for business owners. So if anyone does own a business right here, and if you just want more productivity, you might want this as well. There's a cheat sheet on how to achieve twice as much in half the time. And there's a training that's normally 2 hours. I boiled it down to 35 minutes of the best stuff on how to double revenue and your time off in the next 12 months. And you can get those goodies, or just get on my mailing list at myfocusgift.com. How can you forget that? myfocusgift.com. Take you straight to my website, and you get those goodies.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Shana. It's good to see you.
You too. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.